Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon, so should you. Enjoy your treat!
Today I have kind of a special video for you. So I talk a lot in the comment section. I go on discussions with you guys, especially in the Discord, but we do this a lot in the comment section. And sometimes I get ideas that I didn't even think about from people that are subscribers or people who are just leaving comments on the channel. And it gets me really excited because these new thoughts and new ideas make my ideas of the story for Soul Calibur 7 go in like a completely different direction, or sometimes veer off the path that I thought it was going to go. So this is one of those instances where I was talking to somebody who wants to be referred to as Layla, and you can actually subscribe to her YouTube channel. There will be a link in the description box down below, so please check that out. I wanted to share her thoughts on a conversation that we were having because I thought that this was like a really good conversation. So she actually wrote me a script of her entire concise thoughts, and usually I do this like off the cuff. I don't usually go by scripts, but I really wanted to get her thoughts perfectly down, and then I'm going to respond to them at the end. So without further ado, enjoy some gameplay with some images that actually coincide with this, and we will just jump right in. Ever since the end of Season 2, a topic that has sparked the most conversation and speculation for the story going forward was initiated by the introduction of Iska Acht in Setsuka and Hwangzung Young's Soul Chronicles, and in Nightmare's Interludes. There is much about her that we can already reasonably argue just based on looking at her or just by following the story presented in Season 2. For example, our eyes are immediately drawn to the crescent-shaped tattoo on her neck that resembles the one on Zwei's chest. We also know that she is aligned with Soul Edge, but more interestingly, we can see that by her shared first names and by the vague references she makes to Siegfried and Nightmare's Interludes that she has a connection to the antagonist Iska Farkas from Soul Calibur Legends. However, despite Acht's biography and the character compendium explaining where exactly she comes from and what her purpose is, the fandom understandably has been very confused as to how she and Farkas are tied together. The prevailing theory has been circulating that Acht is Farkas, but that Farkas has been simply gender swapped for this new timeline. However, after having taken much time to try and analyze the bio which we were provided with, I was able to decipher the admittedly very confusing language that was used. And my hope today is to break down the bio for everyone so that you can all understand it as well. I believe that this background information is very important to understand of the doors that it opens and narrative going forward. Here is my breakdown of what Acht's bio means. I will divide her verbatim bio up into sections and then follow each section up with a simplified explanation. Deep inside the Cursed Sword lies the so-called mind of Soul Edge, a formless maelstrom of souls who fell prey to the weapon. It is here that they were born, amalgamations of souls once possessed by the sword given form. Though they shared a collective consciousness, they represented different souls. For some time they wandered the inner world of soul as neither man nor beast. However, with a fracture of Cursed Sword at the end of the 16th century, one being was awash with purpose. It formed into a silver-haired boy and entered the warped mind of the swordsman carrying the blade. It is there that he hatched onto the man's desires and forced him to wield Soul Edge with reckless abandon in hopes that he would harvest more souls for the blade. It is explained here that the souls were once possessed by Soul Edge, would form groups together, and each group would have a single shared consciousness. While still beings made up of distinct individual souls, one of these groups of souls was given a purpose after Sophitia shattered one of Cervantes' swords. That group of souls became known as Iska Farkas. Iska Farkas was the one who compelled Siegfried to take up the leftover sword after Cervantes' defeat. For reasons I will get into shortly, I am interpreting this as having all happened from within Siegfried's mind. Iska Farkas was not a physical being who actually traveled throughout Europe with Siegfried. Farkas' companionship was all inside Siegfried's head with the single purpose of getting Siegfried to collect souls. Afterward, the Cursed Sword suffered a setback. Its favored host would be bested by the Spirit Sword, and the Cursed Sword itself would be rendered into several fragments. It was then that they, who wandered the world of chaos, would find its purpose once again. Though not as one, but as many. They would have earthly vessels to house their once ethereal forms and allow them to traverse the outside world. Though they possess no ability to fight in the outside world, they can make use of the astral chaos and work in the shadows to pair with Malefested and assist or manipulate them. They serve as shepherds of sorts, powerful Malefested with the sword-based monikers, herding them into conflicts across the land that will reap souls and revive the cursed sword. Here we are jumping forward in time. Siegfried has already taken up Soul Edge as his weapon, and now we are at the point of time where Xianghua defeated Inferno. Soul Edge has gone into damage control mode, considering that it once again has been shattered. How does it decide it wants to remedy this? It brings the amalgamation of souls known as Iska Farkas forth into the physical plane. However, instead of bringing forth Farkas as he is, as a single being, each individual soul that is comprised of him is allowed to become their own being. Going back to the point I made before where I explained that I was led to believe that Farkas' interactions with Siegfried were also inside Siegfried's head. I want to now draw attention to the language that is being used now in contrast. It is only now that Xianghua has shattered the sword again, and they would have earthly vessels to house their once ethereal forms and allow them to traverse the outside world. Whereas before, where their duties could be filled simply by infiltrating Siegfried's mind from afar, now they actually need to be out and about so that they can bring back Soul Edge shards and resurrect Soul Edge. They are given vessels in order to accomplish this, as well as elite Malefested to be their partners. These elite Malefested are giving titles that are based on swords, and they are being shepherded by these souls, hence the swords and shepherds. The being known as Acht, meaning 8, appears as a little girl and has been seen in the Ming Empire, Korea, and Japan. Paired with the Malefested known as the Sword of Cursed Flames, she also attempts to manipulate other people's warriors into joining the ranks of the Malefested. Given her name, it naturally follows that there are at least 6 other beings like her, those numbered 2 to 7. They should all find the Malefested from whom they seek to pair. Then it follows that there exists even Sword Malefested in Nightmare's new Dark Force. This paragraph fairly is self-explanatory, as it essentially describes the things we have seen in Soul Chronicles, but now with this whole bio having been interpreted, it should be understood that Iska Acht is not a gender-swapped Iska Farkas. Instead, she is only a portion of his consciousness, 1/7 of it to be precise. We have very little information on all the souls that make up Farkas. So far, only 3 of them have been mentioned in this story by name: Acht, Veer, and Shex. Zwei is not mentioned in the story, but he is mentioned in the character compendium. Acht, we can see, is clearly a child, and while we don't know what Veer and Zwei look like yet, they are both described in the character compendium as children as well. From the encyclopedia, we can directly see this as seen on screen. The Wolf-Crone Kingdom is a deep connection with wolves, as should be evident from the founders' king's monikers, the Wolf. Though these fierce carnivores are feared predators throughout Europe, Wolf-Crone considers themselves a guardian beast. Perhaps it is why the wolves of this land do not attack the citizens of Wolf-Crone or their livestock, since long ago people have claimed and have encountered a giant wolf with silver fur and a supernatural aura in the woodlands of Wolf-Crone. Some believe it to be the Wolf King, or even the reincarnated form of the wolf himself. A certain poet's song tells of the founder's king, who have exhausted his time as a human, is reborn as a wolf. According to the tale, he still awaits his lost lover, who once disappeared far, far away into a hidden village. Yet another legend, the clan of that same village still lives deep within the forest. One of the sword Malefested serving under Nightmare. A handful of Malefested have held on to their consciousness after transformation, but Johan's leadership skills are cut above the rest, allowing him to have some command over even the willful 7 of the sword. He possesses both the cunning and the cruelty for devious plots, disguising himself as a human. He orders his own soldiers to take out Nightmare, only to sacrifice them to the chaos and add the survivors to his Malefested troops. His activities include traveling around the world to survey the powerful warriors searching for Soul Edge and gathering information on his human experiments in the creation of powerful souls. The Evolve organization considers him one of the most dangerous soldiers out there. Johan's attendant Zwei takes up the form of a young boy. Though Zwei is more powerful than the other attendants, he doesn't seem to enjoy fighting, so Johan makes it a point to complete missions without his help. Perhaps it's an act of pride on Johan's part, or perhaps he sees Zwei, the son he lost to Nightmare back when he was a human. Depending on the answer, Zwei could serve as the key to taking down this fearsome Malefested. Excerpt: The Depths of Order. He didn't know how much time had passed since then. The cave had seen several collapses and was now filled with the debris and noxious gas. Any normal person would have died in a day. The pillars and walls form a collapsed underground shrine, crushed his limbs and airways, and even with the sturdy body of an outsider, it was getting difficult to cling to life. Pain was his only sensation left in his ravaged body. Even the wild, dark impulses that used to cloud his mind had faded away. In a cruel twist of irony, it was only until he faced his death for the 2nd time that Curtis's consciousness returned to him. The last remains of his will screamed out for him to live, and he still had things he needed to say to grow. For a short moment, he fell unconscious. When he again woke in the inky black depths, he was nearly a corpse. He had sunk underground, his body scored with wounds and deep gashes, and yet he was alive. And the very reason he still escaped death was none other than the power of the hateful outsiders. Before he had reached the remains of the undead soldiers who once tormented him, a terrible darkness had suffocated him, snuffing out the last of his screams. Yet the powerful will to live coursed through his body, sparkling it into motion. He must live for that man's sake. The cold wind sweeping into the cave formed him a heat of summer had long gone. His form was yet unstable, wouldn't be able to hold on to his sanity for long. When the chilly winter air touched his cheek, a silhouette of a voice floated into his mind. However, he didn't know who it was. All he knew was that he certainly met with misfortune. There is currently no information about sex. Acht, as we know, is partnered with Juan, Sword of Cursed Flames Gobak. Zwei is partnered with Johan, Great Blade Durer. And Vuer is partnered up with Curtis, otherwise known as the Sword of the Inquisitor. There are many doors that this explanation can open and many questions that it could raise. One question I had while I was reading this and trying to make sense of where did each of them get their vessels to walk the earth. I personally wasn't sure I liked the idea of Zwei, a character I enjoy quite a bit, possessing a dead body or anything equally as morbid. So I took some time to research Iska Farkas, and it turned out that Iska Farkas has quite the experience with creating homunculi, and even used one to resurrect his sister. With the idea that legends potentially only happen in Siegfried's head, it's hard to know what would and wouldn't be canon. However, I think it would make sense if each soul was given a homunculus in order to become a physical being. Being a homunculus could also perhaps serve as an explanation for why they can't fight alone in the physical plane. But the even bigger question here is, what does that mean going forward? Well, when you think about Iska Farkas had a direct connection to the evil seed. You can even say that his involvement with Siegfried was the catalyst for the evil seed, and yet anyone who is an avid watcher of Mark Yoon's content should be able to answer. Who do we know is obsessed with the evil seed, to the point of wanting to replicate the event, but with controlled variables? Aswell. Could it be possible that Aswell planted Curtis among Nightmare's hordes specifically so that he could get information about the evil seed? It is possible that he could, through Curtis, learn of the Shepherd's involvement with the evil seed and then turn them into his next targets? Could that actually be what the purpose for Amy is? Could his plan to use her to get close to the Shepherd somehow? After all, we do know that Viola, who is Amy, is very close to Zwei, who is one of the Shepherds. And after learning that a man Siegfried was taken advantage of by his amalgamation of souls in order to produce the evil seed, could Aswell intend on trying to replicate the events of the evil seed but with Raphael instead, using the information or assets he collects from Curtis or Amy? Also, what could this all mean for Zwei going forward? Surely with this complete and total rewrite of his background, he will more or less be a shadow of the character he once was in the old timeline, right? Well, based on some of the information we were given in the Soul Calibur 6 character compendium, I believe that not only will Zwei still receive his wolf spirit Ein, but they will actually be giving us a compelling explanation for what or who Ein is. Soul Calibur 5's art book did sort of address what Ein was, but it more or less just said that Zwei didn't know where he came from or why he decided to try and help Zwei in his time of need. Ein's origin was left completely up in the air, but now fast forward to Soul Calibur 6. I believe we're actually given a description in the character compendium that matches Ein. Ein represents the line drawn between Zwei and the normal humans. The silver wolf is summoned by Zwei and calls and just appears just as quickly. Though Ein appears to be an ethereal entity, his fist packs a very physical punch. This unusual summoning ability is neither something that Zwei was born with nor something he acquired intentionally. When he refused to obey the order of a certain patron, Zwei was lynched and almost died. As he drew close to death, Zwei's soul somehow summoned Ein as if it were a natural survival instinct. Whether the stage of entity that now resides alongside his soul was something that had been lying dormant within his own blood or merely confused spirit drawn out of another realm is something even Zwei can't say for certain. Regardless, ever since he was acquired this new ability, Zwei has been intent on satisfying his need for vengeance against the man who ordered his own lynching, Graf Dumas. This description of the wolf, Hilda's ancestor, physically matches what we know Ein looks like. And if we can all recall from Hilda's Soul Chronicle, Hilda grew up knowing Durer, and Durer is Zwei's partner. We can see that the groundwork is already set, especially if you consider that this could potentially mean that Zwei has already spent a great deal of time at Wolf Crone, which was where the wolf spirit has been allegedly spotted. But what does this have to do with Iska Farkas? Well, we have established already that all the shepherds when combined into one consciousness make up Iska Farkas, meaning that just like Iska Acht, is 1/7 of Farkas' identity, so is Vi. Iska Farkas was a character said to be from Hungary, and if you translate the name Farkas from Hungarian into English, you will see that Farkas means wolf. Not to mention that in Acht's bio, we are given confirmation that there is no shepherd who is called Ein, which is the German word for one. The shepherds start at Zwei, the German word for two. Even before we had the chance to meet our new timeline version as Zwei, we can already see that he is surrounded by wolf motifs and wolf imagery. Could it be possible that Zwei and Ein will find each other again in this timeline? There is no definitive answer to that right now or any of these questions, and this is all pure speculation, and these are all hypothetical rhetorical questions. But as we can see, this information about Iska Farkas that hadn't really been considered before opens up a vast array of possibilities and questions that we are all very interested in getting the answers to. The positioning of Curtis and the direction we know Amy is going right now could set up for some really interesting things going forward. And tangentially, what this could potentially mean for Raphael and Zwei. For me personally, after looking extensively into this, it made me realize that Soul Calibur 6 had canonized legends way more than I initially thought they did. Things are starting to fall into place and make more sense when I try to envision what the future could hold. It also makes me wonder what more they will take from Legends. Who knows, maybe we'll even see a playable Iska Farkas in a mainline game roster one day. I hope that everything I had to say makes sense and helped you all understand the story a little bit better. A big thank you to Mark Yoon for asking my analysis on this topic. I am very happy to be able to share my thoughts on my favorite piece of media with an audience who also loves discussing it. I am excited to hear what different directions people think the story will take now after having discussed this. Thank you so much everyone for listening. And I want to thank you all for watching and listening to this. Now, my thoughts on this are pretty aligned with Layla's actually. Like I've had a lot of different thoughts, and you know I've been talking about this for like 2-3 years, like since season 2 was about to come out, we got all this new information about these characters. My initial thoughts were that like Iska Acht was supposed to be a vessel for Algol, and Aswell was working behind the scenes to create the ultimate seed, and thus using Amy and her psychic abilities becoming Viola to somehow put that plot in motion. And I knew Curtis had something to do with it, but this is a perfect catalyst for what the story could potentially be in Soul Calibur 7. I don't really see any plot holes or anything in her analysis of the situation, and it actually makes me come to think about things in a little bit more of a new light. I'm always the fastest one to say that like the old timeline doesn't matter, the old timeline's not canon anymore, they start a new timeline. But Mark, what about Sophitia? Mark, what about Zasalamel? There's always a lot of these messy things in new timeline stuff, which is why I don't really like when people switch timelines and stories and writing, but this makes a hell of a lot of sense to me, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, or also on the Discord. I also want to thank Layla for actually writing this and taking the time to send me all the images and write this thought-out script. I wouldn't be able to do this video with her thoughts otherwise. At least I would have probably butchered them a little bit or tried to like put them concisely into a shorter video. But again, thank you guys for watching. If you did get to the end of this video, I want you to type Iska Acht in the comment section down below. If you can't spell properly, that's okay. It's not something that's easily spelled, but there's going to be no poll visible on this video. I will be making a poll after this video, but the last video's poll is going to be on Monday's video, so hopefully you're here for that. Please feel free to subscribe and like the video. Also in the description box, remember to go over and subscribe to Layla's channel. Hopefully if there's anything on the channel more like this, I've subscribed, then it's going to be a good future for her YouTube career. But any thoughts are always welcome in the comment section down below, guys. And as I always say, I love it, thank you,
and thank you.